So good morning again, everyone. I don't know why, but Trevor Lewis has some technical issues with his connection to our webinar. That's why I will start. If he manages to connect, he will continue. We just prepared a small welcome speech on behalf of the British Embassy in Russia and on behalf of our Department for International Trade. The main office, the central office, is located in Moscow. Why we arranged this webinar? Because we as DIT and as well as representatives of British Embassy here in Russia do believe and do hope that this new sector that is being developed very rapidly all over the world, and Russia is not an exception. I'm talking mainly about the renewable energy sources and the hydrogen energy that is being really rapidly developing all over the world, and also in Russia. So today we invited two speakers, two experts who will provide us with much more detailed and much more interesting information about what we have here on Russian market, about our main projects, the most important ones, about the main initiatives, governmental and from the business point of view. And after the presentations, you as participants will have an opportunity to make your questions, and hopefully you will receive the best answers to your questions. Also, one of the speakers, representatives of our Ministry of Industry and Trade, will present you the so-called Atlas of Hydrogen projects in Russia. That this is a very important project here, one of the major, one of the biggest one. And after the presentation, each of you will receive this file, this atlas. You will be able to learn it in detail, and in case you have any questions, of course you can come back to us. You will see all our contact details in our presentations. So I think that we can start. And the first one who will start our webinar today is Mr. Fedor Kamenev. And he will be exactly the person who will tell us much more about the hydrogen atlas. So, Fedor, that's for you. You can continue.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Fedor Kamenev, Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. Our ministry oversees the hydrogen industry in Russia. I am from the Hydrogen Industry Development Division. Mr. Gribov was summoned by the Deputy Minister on an urgent matter, so I will speak today and will tell you about hydrogen energy and about renewable in our country. Please, can you pick the first slide? Do you see the slides, the presentation? I would like to tell you about the transition of the Russian economy to a cleaner environment and electric power-friendly future. It is worth noting that around 80% of the Russian Federation energy supply come from solar, wind, nuclear and hydropower, as well as natural gas. That is why Russia is an example of the one of the lowest emission balance in the world. In addition, it is planned that net greenhouse gas emissions in 2050 will be reduced to 60% compared to 19 levels, and by 80% compared to 1990 levels. And by 2060, we plan to achieve a carbon neutral economy. Within the framework of state support mechanism for renewable energy development in the Russian Federation, a new industry for renewable energy was created. Production capabilities of the enterprises allow to produce more than 1.5 gigawatt of generating equipment per year. Investments of the construction and development of production of localized high-tech and science-intensive products for renewable energy exceed $540 million. Implementation of the program for development of renewable energy sources amounting for $4 and $8 billion will allow to enhance the solar and wind power equipment industry by 70%. As a result, the production capacity of the renewable energy industry sector will reach 257 gigawatts of equipment output annually. The incremental investment in the production of RES equipment is expected to reach about $675 million. The Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation has implemented a number of new approaches to stimulate in the industry. Incentives have been introduced to deepen localization, and a score system has been introduced to estimate the contributions of individual elements to the degree of localization. Export targets have been set. By 2021, more than 3.2 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity have been built under the support program. By 2025, the figure will be 6 and 8 gigawatts, and by 2035, 14 gigawatts. We closely monitor the experience of our foreign colleagues in improving and introducing renewable energy technologies, and we are interested in establishing and expanding cooperation with British partners in this area. For example, we are interested in the development of offshore wind power plants, sea-based, and the production of related equipment, as well as materials for the production of components for solar power plants and improving their performance. In addition, Russian companies in the renewable energy industry are interested in exporting their products and engineering service. In particular, one of the leading solar equipment supply and core group has demonstrated its interest in supplying its solar panels to Britain. We invite our British colleagues to mature beneficial cooperation. Please, second slide. Now I will tell about hydrogen industry in our country. All over the world, hydrogen energy is considered as a promising way of decarbonization, which is among the priorities of socio-economic development, and it is increasingly supported by both the government and the business community. Nowadays, 17 countries, including Japan, Korea, Canada, and European Union members, have adopted strategy by hydrogen energy development, aimed at decarbonizing energy and achieving zero greenhouse gas emissions. The Ministry of Industry and Trade of Russian Federation is currently working on a number of issues related to the development of equipment and technology for hydrogen industry, as well as production of low carbon and carbon-free hydrogen and ammonia application. A key factor in the introduction of hydrogen into various sectors of the economy is the development of technology. More than 40 scientific and production organizations are currently involved in the development of technologies and equipment for hydrogen energy in Russia. The Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation, together with Russian mechanical engineers, are working on projects to create the following equipment for production, storage, and transportation of hydrogen. For example, electrolyzers, hydrogen generators of hydrogen from natural gas, system for liquefaction, storage, and transportation systems. An important technology required for large-scale use of hydrogen in the power industry is the hydrogen turbine. In Russia, such turbines are being developed by power engineering leaders, Power Machines, and UEC, United Turbines. Hydrogen turbines can also be used for main gas pipelines, compressor stations to reduce the carbon footprint. It is possible to produce usable heat and electricity using hydrogen fuel cell power plants. These plants are also the heart of hydrogen vehicles. Russian mechanical engineers have different competences in the field of creating systems that run on hydrogen fuel cells and are actively working to develop this area. In addition, hydrogen refueling infrastructure is required for the functioning of hydrogen transport. The Ministry of Industry and Trade of Russia, within the framework of the concept for the development of production and use of electric automobile transport in the Russian Federation for the period until 2030, is working on the project of creating hydrogen refueling infrastructure. We welcome our British colleagues to localize equipment in Russia. In this regard, it is worth mentioning the program Speak to Zero mechanism. An updated list of technologies for which it is possible to conclude special investment contracts has already been approved. This list includes hydrogen fuel cell production technology in this year, and we will add another technologies in several years after from next and others. It should be highlighted that the development of national standards in the field of hydrogen energy is currently underway. Thus, the Russian standardization energy supported the proposals of our ministry and approved the program of national standardization for 2022, which included more than 30 standards in terms of hydrogen technologies. The issue of standardization is also one of the key in the field of international cooperation. Next slide, please. As for hydrogen production, it is important to emphasize that according to the energy strategy of Russia for the period up to 2035, the indicator of solving the problem of hydrogen energy is the significant export of hydrogen by 2030. In order to implement this task, the Ministry of Industry and Trade of Russia prepared the Russian Atlas of low carbon and carbon-free hydrogen and ammonia production projects, Atlas. In 4 languages, it is Russian, English, German, and French, which already includes 41 projects. Separately, it must be emphasized that there is that almost all, if not even all, hydrogen projects in Russia involve hydrocarbons. Many organizations and governments think so. But if you look closely at the atlas, you can see that 30 projects out of 41 are planned to produce green hydrogen using the energy of the sun, wind, and water. That is the quantitative ratio. This is more than 70% of the total numbers of projects. Other projects involve hydrogen and ammonia production from natural gas by steam conversion of methane with carbon capture, by methane pyrolysis, and hydrogen production by coal gasification. These projects are testing grounds for carbon dioxide capture, transportation, and burial technologies. In other words, Russian hydrogen projects can be attractive to various organizations, both those who want to work with conventional hydrocarbons with carbon capture or methane pyrolysis technologies, and those who are fundamentally interested in using renewable energy sources, so green hydrogen. This atlas is positioned as a reference point for investors and consumers of hydrogen and ammonia. We're interested in jointly implementing these projects with our British partners, which will contribute to the decarbonization of the economies of both countries. In addition, we believe that for the purpose of long-term planning, it is advisable to start working on the issue of contracting for the supply of low carbon and carbon-free hydrogen and ammonia, to which the Russian organizations are also ready. Thus, the atlas is already used in the preparation of intergovernmental commissions as well as trade missions of the Russian Federation to promote these projects abroad among public and private organizations in order to find foreign partners. I ask the organizers to send this atlas to all participants of the conference to study and to take it into account in the work process. Next slide, please. I would like to conclude my presentation by stressing that if you look on the map provided by The Economist, you will not see any single project developed in Russia. Therefore, my request is that our projects from the Atlas are to be included in the list of hydrogen projects worldwide. So this is why we asked the organizers to ask you to hear our presentation and to learn that Russian government, Russian organizations are making a lot of hydrogen projects, more than 40, and you can participate in it. I would like to direct your attention to the point that Russia is an example of one of the lowest emissions balance in the world. We ask you to participate in our projects, and if you have more questions in the future, you can ask them us, the trade delegation of Russia in the UK, and the trade delegation UK in Russia. Thank you very much.
So, Fyodor, thank you very much for your presentation. I remind you all, dear colleagues, that in case you have any questions, you can put them on our chat box, and then we will ask these questions to our presenters. And now I would like to give the floor to our second speaker, to our second expert, Mr. Alexey Zhikharev. Please, Alexey.
Could you please turn on my presentation? Or shall I share my own screen here?
I will do it. Just tell me when and I will switch the slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, hello. As I understand, so we are talking together today about renewable energy and hydrogen perspectives in Russia. So that's why I'll give some more details about the trends and the results of functioning of the sector renewable energy in Russia within the last several years, and pay some more attention to the support schemes which are actual for Russian energy sector. Could we turn on the second slide? Yeah, so I'll briefly describe what is happening here regarding the support. So we have several kinds of support schemes in Russia. The biggest sector is the wholesale electricity market, where we have the support scheme, which is actual since 2013. And according to this support scheme, total amount of renewable energy to be commissioned by 2024 will be 5.5 gigawatts. The basis of the support is the payment for capacity according to the capacity supply agreement. So this is a kind of national scheme, which is not realized anywhere else. But still, this is pretty efficient according to our point of view. It's important to mention that in 2021, the government adopted another resolution which launched the support scheme, which will be actual from 2023 till 2035. So it's a kind of second stage of the support scheme on the wholesale market. A bit different rules are implemented there, but we, I guess, don't have enough time to pay attention to these details. And according to the second stage, by 2035, another up to 9 gigawatts will be commissioned in Russian energy system. So another support scheme is represented in the retail market of electricity. So this is the regional markets, and the approach is more or less the same. So like in the wholesale market, the investment projects should be selected on the competitive selection of the investment projects, and the criteria for this for being selected, the minimum price of electricity or minimum size of capital expenditure. So in the retail market, the only difference is that in the wholesale market, the organizer of the selection is the federal trading system, and in the regional markets, the regional regulators should organize such tender. The main difference is that the regional selections are not obligatory for regions, so this is up to the local government whether to organize a tender or to prefer to skip this opportunity. And another difference is that in the wholesale market, the project receives the capacity payment according to the capacity supply agreement. In the regional level, there is the contract for supply of electricity according to the specific tariff on kilowatt hour, and these tariffs should be sold to the local grid company. And the limit for the regional market is 5% of the grid losses on the regional level. So another topic is micro generation. Since 2021, this is possible to install the micro generation on site and sell to the grid up to 15 kilowatts. So this is relevant for the households and for the small businesses. So since this year, there is opportunity to install your own either PV panel or some other generation, and to supply yourself and to sell access of electricity to the grid. Another way to promote renewables is the kind of opportunity to conclude energy service agreements in the isolated territories where the price of electricity is pretty high and the electricity is being produced with diesel or fuel oil, and it's possible to come to such producers and to conclude energy service agreements for the difference of the fuel cost, which would be saved after the installation of the renewable energy. The next slide, please. Yeah, so as I would not repeat what our colleagues from the ministry have already shared with you, but I would just briefly say that the support scheme was focused on the development of localized production of equipment in Russia, and finally it was a successful story because of the local content requirement, which are kind of main parameter in the support scheme. So if you do not use localized equipment, you will not be able to get the support. So you will, in case you use not localized equipment, you will get only the small share of your capacity price or the tariff for electricity. And that's why, so now we see that these kind of producers successfully produce this or that equipment in Russia. So we have solar sector and we have wind sector. So why I highlighted Siemens Gamesa, because they finally, after they successfully produced a number of wind turbines for several projects, they finally made a decision to skip the second stage of the support scheme, and as I understand, they will not be the localized producer within the next years. So the next slide, please. Yeah, I would not pay attention, I guess, to this slide. In case you have any questions, I would, with pleasure, provide comments. But this is just an indication of what kind of parts of wind turbine or wind generator are being produced in Russia. So the next slide, please. Here we can see what is the real local content requirement and how this requirement surpassed the evolution from first support scheme to the second stage. We see here that in the first stage of the program for solar and for wind, the local content requirement was quite the same, so from 65 to 70%. Now in the new program, which starts after 2025, the requirements will be much higher, and we see that the requirement will be up to 85-90% of the total equipment which will be used for the construction of the project. And what is also important to mention that in the new stage of the support scheme, the new requirement was implemented into the regulation. It is the export. To get the support, you have to confirm that you or your or provider of your equipment or OEM which provided the equipment for this plant exported a number of units successfully within previous years. And here the numbers are 20 to 300%. Percentages the yearly revenue from the electricity sales. So in solar it's more aggressive. For wind this is a bit less aggressive, 20, 40, 60. And for hydro, since this is less developed market in Russia, and the total volume right now is just 200 megawatts for several years. So the government decided not to put so much pressure on this parameter and put only 4 and 9% as an indicator. The next slide, please. I guess, this is like the explanation how you can get your local content requirement points. So you can see here the what should be produced to be qualified as a wind generator, what should be produced to be qualified as a solar power plant. So in case you have any questions, I would pay some more attention, but we can skip to the next slide, please. So as I have already told in the beginning, so finally by 2024, the first program will bring us to 5.5 gigawatts of renewable energy. Now already the total renewable energy capacity is more than 4 gigawatts, including the solar power plants which are located in Crimea. So the growth rate is pretty high. So since 2017, the growth rate is about 100% a year, and right now since 2020 we are on a kind of flat level. So we in 2020 the level was about 1.2 gigawatts. This year, 2021, the total capacity will be pretty much the same. So also 1.2 gigawatts will be commissioned this year, and we expect that all of these numbers will be actual for next years, until we step into the new era of development of green hydrogen. In case this sector develops as it is being forecasted or projected right now, we could see kind of up to 5 gigawatts to be commissioned every year. In case the green hydrogen will be the fuel which will have enough demand globally. So the next slide, please. Yeah, so here you can see projection until 2035 of the capacity which will be implemented only in the wholesale market. We expect that, nevertheless, as I have already told you, on the retail market, the selections are not obligatory, but still we expect that by 2035, this sector could bring another up to 3 gigawatts or even more. And we see right now the great interest of independent consumers to install its own generation on the basis of renewable energy. So different industry players are trying to prepare feasibility studies of building either PV plants or wind plants on site for the self generation. First of all, they're doing this because of the risks of the more strict requirements within CBAM. So this is and another risk is the implementation of carbon tax inside Russia. And that's why we expect that within next 10, 15 years, this sector could bring another something like 3 to 5 gigawatts totally, or even more. Thank you. The next slide, please. Yeah, here just for the brief overview, you can see the regions where most of renewable energy generation is located. You can see that now it's mostly the south part of Russia. But first of all, more nature potential is there, more solar radiation, and the wind is better. And secondly, these places have better infrastructure, the grid infrastructure and industry infrastructure. What is also important for the construction of the wind power plants, the logistics. So in the northern part, it's much more difficult, but still we have one wind park, pretty big, 200 megawatts, being developed by Enel in Murmansk area. So this is the northern part of Russia, this Kola Peninsula. This is not highlighted yet because it's not commissioned. But we expect that the plant will be commissioned within first quarter of next year. Next slide, please. Yeah, here we can see the volumes by each type of generation and the years when they will be or should be constructed or commissioned. And for years 25 to 27 for wind, for example, these are the results already of the first selection, which was organized in September of this year. And this was a really successful selection because the price, the bid prices fall down something like 3 times comparing to the limits. And because of that, investors got the opportunity to commission 2.5 times more capacity than preliminary planned in the regulation. The same happened in solar. It was planned that in 23 and 24 the capacity will be around 200 in each year, but because of the dramatic fall of the prices on the competitive selection, first of all because of the high competition, it's now possible to commission 2 times more capacity in 23 and 24. In small hydro, as I have already told, there is not enough competition yet. That's why the prices are on the maximum level, and investors are not motivated to compete and to decrease prices. In the first selection, totally 100 megawatts of small hydros were selected. Next slide, please. Here you can see the evolution of the, so to say, price or tariff for the electricity within the support scheme, so within the wholesale market. And we can see that the prices in wind and solar drop down to at 85% within last 10 years. So this is more or less compared to the global indicators. If we skip to the next slide, we can see that right now the results of the Russian market are more or less could be compared to the indicators in other countries. So right now, if we look at the solar, we are right now a bit higher than in other countries, but we expect that within the next 2-3 years, the prices in Russia would reach indicators in other developed markets. And in wind, already now, Russia is at the level of European markets, and the projections are also very good. So we expect new players in this market, which could stress up the competition even more than this year. Next slide, please. So what is more important is that according to the last competitive selection, we now can definitely say that the renewable energy became the cheapest resource on the Russian energy market. You can see here the average price of electricity in wind. So this is light blue, around 3 rubles per kilowatt hour. So this is right now equals to the weighted average price on the non-regulated market. And another light blue line is the minimum bid of company Fortum, and this is much less than the average price. So we can compare it to, for example, to gas and to coal generation, and it's easy to understand that wind became the cheapest resource. Solar is still a bit more expensive than gas, but already cheaper than coal. And we project that within the next 5 to 7 years, solar will become cheaper than gas. And also there are still discussions around the gas prices in the European market. Now the prices are again 1,400 per 1,000 cubic meters. In Russia, as you know, for the local market, the prices are regulated, and in case the politics and the regulation will change, then immediately even solar will become cheaper than gas sooner than we project right now. Next slide, please. Yeah. I don't know, is there any sense to pay attention to hydrogen since colleagues from ministry described this in details, and they even shared the map of the projects which were presented already. So I will briefly mention that right now we in the association, Russian Renewable Energy Development Association, we are participating in the development of the Russian program for the development of low carbon hydrogen, and we hope that by second quarter of next year this will be adopted by the government. Right now the main topic is to identify the level of demand globally for the hydrogen, and what is the attitude so for which particular hydrogen we have demand. For green, for blue, for yellow, and so on, or maybe there will be no colors anymore. And the hydrogen will be just standardized commodity within next decades. So I will not stop here on numbers, but because my colleagues have already described them. The next slide, please. Yeah, then the next. Here I would just say that in association we developed the regional investment rating. So we analyzed the investment climate and the regions of Russia from the point of view of the potential to develop the projects in renewable energy. And this year in 2021, we presented the results of this rating. You can see here the leaders of our ratings, the leading regions. We believe that we will do this exercise every 2 years. We will analyze the regulation, we will analyze the infrastructure, the potential, the attitude of the government to the agenda of sustainable development, and so on. And we believe that this will be done every 2 years. I will here stop. In case you have any questions, please, I'm ready to answer. Thank you.
So, Alexey, firstly, I would like, of course, to thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I think both you and for the
Sorry, I don't hear you.
and for you, Alexey, just one thing I would like to mention from my side. We have only 15 minutes before our webinar terminates, before it finishes. So the first question is, could our participants have more information about the financing support mechanism, for example, feed-in tariffs to support large-scale renewable projects? And also, our participants would like to have more details on what requirements there are for the percentage of locally manufactured content.
I would start with the second question. To get this information, you can look at the presentation, my presentation, slide number 5. So the requirements mentioned there. For the first question, if you want more details, first of all, you can have a look on the annual reports published on the webpage of reda.org. So we usually issue such reports where a bit more details are presented. In case you need even more details for the particular investment projects, then the only advice is to get acquainted with the local regulation or hire local consultants, which would with pleasure explain all the schemes and the details and the underwater stones of this regulation.
Further, would you like to add something from your side to this question?
Actually, that is quite full. That my colleague said. So this is enough.
So in this case,
Thank
I
you.
will. Okay, thank you to you. I would like to read the second question that is directed to Alexey. So is there any interest in offshore wind, either in the Russian sector or the Caspian Sea or elsewhere in Russian waters?
It's a very broad question. So for sure there is an interest, and some companies are considering investment in offshore parks. There are only several barriers. First is not enough competence in the construction of offshore plants in Russia, and the second is that the biggest and the strongest potential of wind is in the northern part of Russia, so in Arctic Ocean, where we don't have enough offtake, so there is not enough demand. There is no infrastructure to consume this power. That's why I would say that offshore plants are mostly considered together with the green hydrogen projects.
So, dear participants, do you have any other questions? Oh yes, we have one. Further, that is for you. You mentioned that sorry, I have some issues. Sorry. Okay. So yes, further, the question is for you. You mentioned that 70% of the hydrogen projects are green, but what does they represent in terms of capacity? As we know, green is challenged by the scale up, and one big blue hydrogen may easily cover all the green ones.
On this, I can tell that Russia has a big territory with a lot of energy, sun, wind, and water, and with it, in our country, we have a lot of coal and gas, and a lot of energy. Russian energy organizations wants to participate in hydrogen theme, and these different organizations have different resources like renewable energy or gas, and that is why we have different projects that in what different Russian companies participate, and that is why we have so various atlas. Why there is more than 70% of green hydrogen? Because to make a blue hydrogen, you need to put technologies of CCUS, and this is quite difficult and don't have a low cost. And if you compare it with projects with green energy, you need just renewable energy and electrolysis, and that is why it is a more fast way to build a project. And I will repeat that different companies have different sources, and on nowadays we have that there is more companies with sources with electricity, green electricity.
Thank you very much for that. I think that I will read the last question for today because we have only 5 minutes left. So, and I do believe that the last question is also more for you, Fodor, but maybe if Alexey has something to add, of course, he's welcome. So the question is, Mr. Kamar Khan from the company called Clean Power Hydrogen is asking how their company can get involved in the green hydrogen projects in Russia.
There is there is 3 ways. First way is to participate with technologies. You can write to companies that make these projects in the contacts in the end of Atlas. The second way to participate is investing in these projects to get money after projects will work. So this strategy works in liquid gas projects. For example, Japanese or Indian companies, they buy about 10-15% of project in the beginning, and after they get a lot of money when the project starts work. And the third way is to work to sign the contracts to import, to get this low carbon and carbon-free hydrogen and ammonia to use it in their projects in England or third countries to make their projects more low carbon-free. So if you have questions, exact question, you can ask our colleagues from Trade Mission Russia and Britain, or Trade Mission Britain or in Russia, the organizers of this, or you can write in our ministry. So we're waiting. We're waiting, and we are glad to see the British partners in Russian projects. So if you can look in Atlas, it is more than 40, and this is a lot of barriers and a lot of chances to get in plus. Thank you.
Maybe to complete our webinar, I would like to thank again very much both Fyodor and Alexey for providing us such important and interesting information, because they are the representatives of groups of people who are directly engaged in development of hydrogen agenda and of renewable energy development here in Russia. That's why it was very interesting to hear their position, their opinion, and learn more information about the current and future relevant projects here in Russia. And as you may see, there is the last slide of our today's presentation. It is dedicated to the hybrid event. Our DIT is going to organize on the 10th of February, as you may see. Here are also our contact details in case you would like to participate, or in case you have any additional questions to ask, you can write to this email, so you can phone me. It is my mobile phone. So we would welcome all of you here at our event. And we do believe that this webinar helped you to learn much more information about your business opportunities you may have here on Russian market. And we do believe that this sector, both hydrogen and renewable energy, may become a very good point for establishing new long-term business relationships between British companies and Russian companies. So in case you do not have any comments, any questions, I think we can terminate. But again, please pay attention to this slide, and it will be a very important event exactly to manage to establish potential relationships, business relationships between British and Russian companies engaged in development of hydrogen and renewable energy sectors. So thank you again very much for your time, for your questions, and of course to Fyodor and to Alexey for their great presentations.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, and you are welcome in Russia.